So if you're listening to this audio video, then it means you're having trouble with Geico. I'm going to tell you a story of how I had trouble with Geico, and I actually used it to my advantage. This is the process that I would suggest if I was going through this same process again and I didn't know the information. My girlfriend got into an accident where the other person made an illegal left-hand turn and totaled out her car. The other person was represented by Geico. So immediately, Geico takes a very offensive stance and basically says that my girlfriend is 20% at fault because she was speeding. Now they're taking all this information from their own client who's saying that she was speeding. And so at this point, they're making a settlement somewhat difficult. And what I mean by settlement somewhat difficult, a fair settlement, a reasonable settlement. So immediately they want to just give her 80% of her car value. And then they want to take like 6-7 weeks to actually process the claim. And then they want to give her any money for the rent-a-car. When somebody is at 100% fault, they pay for your out of time while you don't have a car. And they have to pay that until they give you a fair settlement. So initially you want to get to the point of what a fair settlement. And I'm using fair because I'm putting my little quotation mark up in the air because this is all interpretation. Because what the lawyers told me is that once they give you a settlement, at that point, they're only obligated to pay for your rent-a-car up until that point. But we were able to get 144 days of rental car fees. We were able to get the maximum in small claims of $7,500. We were able to get an additional $3,700. I don't remember the exact number, but we got 2 checks from Geico. Now, first of all, you got to understand my interpretation of Geico's business model. Their business model appears to be based upon them not giving full value for their claims and how often they can get away with these tactics. So it appears that if you get into an accident with Geico and you don't have full coverage, meaning you don't have another insurance company backing you up, you have put yourself in a position for Geico to strong arm you. And what I mean by strong arm you is they would make up this lie that my girlfriend was speeding. They would create a value based upon that, 80% value of her car. They would shove that mentality down your throat like it's reality. They would claim that they have all this evidence by these analysis and all this kind of guru people who reconstructs accidents, and they're able to reconstruct that she was speeding. They'll tell you a bunch of lies, and then they'll send you a check about 6 or 7 weeks after the accident.
So when you're approaching an intersection, there is a duty of every driver to slow down and make sure there is no traffic coming or there is no danger going through that intersection. We believe that if that was done, the accident could have been avoided. Because of that, it is a contribution to the accident itself. The damages with the force shows the speed was a factor. Just looking at those damages, no damages wouldn't occur. The speed was not a factor.
What you're telling me, just so I'm clear, is that I'm at fault because I did not slow down to 10 miles an hour, whatever you say I should have slowed down to, when I entered the intersection, when there were no cars in the intersection and I was at a green light. And because I didn't slow down to 10 miles an hour in the middle of the intersection where no cars are at and your client hit me, that means that puts me at 20% fault.
So now let's imagine what it's like for you as a person that only has liability on their car. You don't have full coverage, so your insurance company is like, oh, it's a legal left-hand turn. The other company is at fault. We're out of it. I'm washing my hands of it. They can do very little work to be your advocate. In our case, our insurance company, Amica, did very little work. I almost felt like it was a burden to even talk to her about our insurance claim. It put my girlfriend in a very vulnerable position. Now, So the first thing is having just liability. It puts you at a risk. The second thing that will put you at a risk with unfair settlement of Geico is that if you sound desperate, if you sound like you really have no security support or monetary support or family support, like you're out all alone, like you're living from check to check, you're surviving, and it would be a major inconvenience for you to not have a car. So they actually take you through a process where you're without a car for 6 weeks, and they're giving you bullshit and they're lying to you. It's a very frustrating situation if you don't know the law. And so by the time they do give you a settlement, which is 80% of the value, most people, they'll send you the check and you're so happy the fact that you got a check that you can finally get a car. Most people will cash that check. Do not cash that check. They're going to send you a check, don't cash it. It's actually a check that it could inhibit you from actually getting your full settlement value later on down the line. Because they're basically going to make you wait. It's about a 6-month process. When they send you that check, deny that check. Here's the original check that we got from Geico. And later on, this is the check that we later received. Now, I want to clarify some of the notes within the check. See, what they do is that they send you a less than value, 80% value of your car. They send you the check, and if you cash that check, you really are accepting the settlement offer because you cashed the check. So later on down the line, if you want to go back and get them for the 20% value or whatever additional for, they don't give you a rent-a-car through that time, because once again, they sweat you. They make you sweat for 6 to 7 weeks without a rental car, without a car. And that's almost like unbearable in the city of LA. So they don't pay for a rent-a-car, so you're left out in the cold. And again, you just have liability, and if you don't have the insurance on your particular policy, then you're stuck out in the cold. So make sure you get the insurance on your policy. But guess what? If you don't have the insurance in your policy, you can work it to your advantage later. It's just going to take some time, but it'll be profitable, I guarantee, based upon my experience. I don't guarantee, but it's all highly likely. I'll put it in that case. The verbiage here is that you need to get like 80% of value. You want to have the check identify exactly what it is: property damage, loss of use, property damage coverage. Because they could try to throw a check up there that actually goes for not only your property damage, but also, your injury. So you got to have them define what this check is for. Very important that you have this type of verbiage. Again, let's compare it to the first check here that has none of that verbiage. This is the check they send to you when you're desperate, and this is the check that they want you to cash. Do not cash. Hold on to the check. Willpower. That's what you need. So now you've actually been frustrated. You've got a check for less than the value. You're dealing with a Geico agent who's very uncooperative. You feel like you're stuck. Okay, this right now is where you want to antagonize the agent. You want to make this claim personal. They're somewhat arrogant because of the power that they've been abusing to a lot of wide variety of people. So they come in with somewhat of an arrogant attitude. You got to use that to your advantage. So entice them, instigate them like, I'm going to win, or don't be baby about it. But I know what I did. I sent the guy, because they won't give you email, but they'll give you a telephone number. And after hours, you leave a voicemail. And I left with like these 5-10 minute voicemails, almost like a chanting voicemail about what I was going to do within this case. And it really probably got underneath his skin. Now, how did that work to my advantage? Because they don't want to, when they get underneath your skin, they're going to try to outweight you. They're going to try to make sure that you're desperate enough not to actually sign the check. In this case, he waited too long. He waited 144 days. I don't know if he got fired or if he resigned or what happened, but he was no longer working with the company when somebody else took over the case. And all of a sudden now, they want to talk about, hey, we need to send you a check. We need to send you a check. We need to send you a check. And then we told them, well, we don't want to get this check because, we know if we cash it, it might interfere with our overall settlement. And then that's when they come back and said, well, they gave us a letter talking about this does not disturb you from any future earnings or blah, blah, blah. And they put that on the check. So now we have the verbiage that we need to actually file our case. And that's when we started to file our case with small claims. So the goal is to get them, after they take 45 days to give you the initial settlement, you want to extend that period to as long as you want. Because 144 days at about $40 a day for a rent-a-car, you just put the numbers on that, nice numbers. You put the math on that, you can see right there that it's about $6,000, Whatever that case is, it adds up. Then that's how we were able to get the maximum. In fact, we probably would have got more because the maximum later was extended to $10,000 after we filed. But we took ahead to 75. I'm not complaining. It was very, no complaints here. So getting back to, you want to get them to extend that time period. So, in our case, we got 144 days. That's where they finally sent the fair settlement check, where they defined what the check was. It didn't include injury. It only included, 80% of the damages. They sent us letters that we can go after the remaining, uncleared arbitration balance later on. So you want to get that in writing, and then that's a fair settlement. So they're only obligated at that point to pay for your rent-a-car. That's when you go to court, file a small claims court now, and so you get your date. By the time you get to court, especially you got to assume when you go into it that you're 100% no fault. This only works in the scenario that I experience if you're 100% no fault. Something like somebody makes an illegal left-hand turn, somebody rear ends you, those obvious type of accidents. It works very well under this situation. So when you get to court, of course you're going to win the case because you know what? They don't have any proof. In fact, the Geico agents that we were claiming, we got all these people, we got all this analysis, they didn't even show for court. They left their particular client without any representation. And so when he goes to court, the judge is looking at him, oh shit, you don't have any representation from the insurance company. And so, the judge basically asked us a few questions. One of the questions was, Key, did you cash that check? And we said no. We wanted to wait for our day in court, we said, and which was absolutely true. We never cashed any checks by the time we got to court 5-6 months later. Another question that the judge, he said, how, well, that's kind of $7,500, how can you verify the funds? So we had some, paperwork that showed, what the value of the car was. And then we also took in the rent-a-car and we computed it 144 days. And then, I also told her, to my girlfriend, to talk about the hardships that she did receive. Well, she ended up getting fired. Her mother did get terminally ill. She needed a car at the time that she didn't have to travel back and forth. So it was high stress. And then the judge said, yeah, well, they couldn't foresee that. And she said, yeah, but if they would have did their job and conducted business under the normal circumstances, I would have had a car and I wouldn't have to deal with this hardship. So, this is unnecessary. They should have just settled the thing, especially now they're 100% fault. We got a full settlement. So in this case, it's very easy to prove, that you're not at fault. The next thing is to say, how can you substantiate all those days of, a loss of use, which is a rent-a-car. And it's very easily that you can say, hey, they never gave me a full settlement. They were trying to get me to sign and cash this check, based upon, what I was told, that if I cash this check, it settles everything in full. And I didn't want to do that, and blah blah blah. You could definitely run that line down the run that jargon as far as when you communicate to the judge. So in this case, we received 2 checks, as I said before. The initial offer, which is 80% of value, very low rental car, to the second check, which we went to small claims, and we received the full maximum of $75 plus a $75 for the filing fee. So $75.